Hello everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Holland Land Office Museum's Artifact video series. My name is Ryan Duffy and I'm the director of the museum. And this week we're going to talk about another prominent early resident of Batavia and one who held some very important offices while residing here in our community. So this week we're going to talk about the gentleman whose portrait is behind me, Mr. Aaron Van Cleve, who was a member of the survey team for the Holland Land Company under Joseph Ellicott, and eventually became a Genesee County Sheriff for 2 different terms. So we're going to get into the life of Mr. Aaron Van Cleve and his importance to Batavia and Genesee County. Now, Aaron Van Cleve was born in Hopewell, New Jersey in 1768, and his family resided in a portion of New Jersey which brought him into contact with another future prominent family of Batavia, and that was the Stevens family. Now, James Stevens came to work for the Holland Land Company during the survey and stayed on as a clerk and eventually became county clerk, but his family started off in New Jersey. His father Benjamin was a well-known landowner there, and Van Cleve, as a young man, became infatuated with James's sister Elizabeth, and they would actually marry in 1791. Now, when the Great Survey under Joseph Ellicott, hired by the Holland Land Company, began, started out of Philadelphia, and Stevens and Van Cleve were 2 of the individuals that were brought in to help with that survey. And Stevens, being a little bit more well-known and being his brother-in-law, Van Cleve, was brought along to help out with the survey, and he actually was part of the group under Benjamin Ellicott that did the eastern transit line along the eastern boundary of the Holland land purchase. And he joined in the late 1790s and would actually end up staying here in Western New York after the completion of the survey about 1800-1801. Though he wouldn't necessarily come to Batavia right away, as it took a few years for him to make his way here. After his brother-in-law James Stevens settled here, eventually Aaron and Elizabeth made their way as well. And they settled here in Batavia in 1809. And Van Cleve was instantly thrust into the upper echelons of the small frontier community with his connections to other prominent people. And eventually it led to some higher political office, as he was actually elected Sheriff of Genesee County for 2 different terms. The first was from 1811, and then he was put in place again from 1814 to 1815. And being sheriff of an entire county, especially Genesee County at that time, was much larger than it is today. It was a very prominent responsibility, and both of his decrees were signed by Daniel Tompkins, the then governor, and actually was signed off on by Vice President James Monroe. Now, there isn't much information about anything in particular happening during Van Cleve's tenure as sheriff, but he was also prominent in other organizations, as he was part of the committee that was set up to create a Protestant Episcopal church here in Batavia, and he was tasked in particular with seeking aid from the Holland Land Company, as he did have a connection to the land company as being a former employee, to see if there's any funds available or any sites available within the community that the land company could either give or donate a discount price to the organization to set up a church. Now, Aaron Van Cleve would spend the rest of his life here in Batavia until he would pass away in 1860, and he's actually buried in our historic Batavia Cemetery, along with some of the other very prominent members of early Batavia, in some cases that he was related to through marriage. Well, I hope you enjoyed this edition of our Artifact video series and learned a little bit more about Mr. Aaron Van Cleve here, one of our early sheriffs of Genesee County. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up or even subscribe to the channel, as it does give us a little bit more help and let you know even sooner when we do release new videos. And be sure to check out the rest of our catalog, as just in this one playlist, it's almost 150 videos now. And you can go back and check out all sorts of content, as well as our other guest speakers and concerts. But as always, the best way to learn more about all the things we handle here in these videos is to stop by the museum and see for yourself, as we'll be able to share even more information with you and show you some of these artifacts up close and personal. And if you're really interested in supporting local history of Genesee County, the best way to do that is to become a member of the museum, as that is the easiest way to help support us as we make more content just like this.